The moment Gavin realized he'd left his notebook on Ezra's desk, his heart plummeted like a stone into the San Francisco Bay. It wasn't just any notebook. It held the list, a meticulously crafted survival guide titled, "How to Avoid Falling for Ezra Callahan, My Insanely Hot Boss." By the time he sprinted back to the office, it was too late. Ezra was leaning back in his chair, flipping through the pages with a smirk that could melt steel. Gavin Brooks, 25, had landed his dream job at Horizon Media, a sleek San Francisco agency known for its cutting-edge campaigns. Fresh from a small town in Oregon, he'd expected city life to be overwhelming. But nothing prepared him for Ezra Callahan, the 27-year-old creative director who seemed sculpted by gods with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. Ezra's charisma filled every room, his deep laugh echoing through late-night brainstorming sessions, and his casual habit of loosening his tie while strategizing made Gavin's pulse race. It was a problem, a huge problem. Hence, the list, 10 foolproof rules to keep his crush under control, like don't stare when he rolls up his sleeves, and avoid one-on-one coffee runs at all costs. On that fateful Tuesday, Gavin had been distracted, juggling a pitch deck and a latte order when he'd left the notebook behind. Now, standing in the doorway of Ezra's glass-walled office, he felt his world tilt. "Gavin," Ezra said, his voice smooth as velvet, "this is fascinating reading." He tapped the notebook, his green eyes glinting with mischief. Rule 7. Don't let his smile derail your brain. "I'm flattered." Gavin's face burned. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered, though it was exactly what it looked like. He wanted to vanish, but Ezra stood, all 6 feet 2 inches of effortless confidence, and crossed the room. "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like," he said, leaning closer. "And I'm curious, how's Rule 3 working out for you? No lingering after meetings?" Gavin's throat went dry. He'd written that rule after a late-night session where Ezra had leaned over his shoulder to review a design, his cologne, a mix of cedar and citrus, making Gavin forget how to blink. Now, Ezra was using his own words against him, and the worst part? It was working. The next morning, Gavin arrived at the office determined to reclaim his dignity. He'd spent the night replaying Ezra's teasing smile, cursing himself for leaving the notebook behind. Horizon Media's open-plan office buzzed with energy, designers sketching, copywriters debating taglines, and the hum of San Francisco's skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Gavin's desk, tucked near the coffee bar, offered a clear view of Ezra's office. A dangerous view. "Morning, Gav," said Lena, his best friend at work, a sharp-witted graphic designer with a knack for reading him. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Worse," Gavin muttered, glancing at Ezra's office. "He found my notebook." Lena's eyes widened. "The list?" "Oh, honey, you're screwed." She laughed, then sobered. "Wait, what did he say?" "He's flirting with it," Gavin admitted, sinking into his chair. "He quoted it. Like he's enjoying this." Lena grinned. "Well, duh. Ezra's a charmer, and you're adorable when you're flustered. Maybe this is your chance." "My chance to what? Humiliate myself further?" Gavin groaned, but Lena's words lingered. Could Ezra's teasing mean something more? No. He couldn't let his crush cloud his judgment. He had a job to do, a career to build. Falling for his boss was not an option. Yet, Ezra seemed determined to test that resolve. At the morning briefing, he called Gavin up to present their latest campaign pitch, a bold rebrand for a local coffee chain. As Gavin spoke, Ezra watched with an intensity that made his knees weak. When Gavin finished, Ezra leaned forward, his voice low. "Great work, Brooks. Let's grab coffee later to discuss details." The pause before details felt deliberate, and Rule 4, no coffee runs, flashed in Gavin's mind. By noon, Gavin was spiraling. He ducked into the break room, hoping to avoid Ezra, but fate had other plans. Ezra strolled in, holding 2 takeout cups from the cafe downstairs. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing Gavin a latte. Their fingers brushed, and Gavin nearly dropped the cup. "Careful," Ezra murmured, his smile pure trouble. "Wouldn't want to break Rule 8. Don't touch his hands." Gavin froze. "You memorized it?" "I'm a quick study," Ezra said, winking. "Besides, it's compelling stuff. Rule 10's my favorite. Don't imagine him outside the office." "Too late for that one, huh?" Gavin wanted to protest, but Ezra's playful tone disarmed him. Was this just a game to him? Or was there something real behind the flirtation? As Ezra left the break room, Gavin's heart pounded with a dangerous mix of dread and hope. That evening, the office emptied out, but Gavin stayed late to tweak the coffee chain campaign. The city sparkled beyond the windows, cable cars clanging faintly in the distance. He was deep in thought when Ezra appeared, leaning against his desk. "Burning the midnight oil?" Ezra asked, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, violating Rule 1 spectacularly. "Just finishing up," Gavin said, avoiding eye contact. Ezra tilted his head. "You know, your list is adorable, but it's missing something." Gavin frowned. "What?" "A rule about what to do when your hot boss likes you back." Ezra's voice was soft, sincere, and it hit Gavin like a tidal wave. For a moment, the world stopped. Was Ezra serious? Or was this another tease? Before Gavin could respond, Ezra's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. "I've got a call," Ezra said, but his eyes lingered. "Think about it, Gavin." As Ezra walked away, Gavin's mind raced. The list was supposed to protect him, but now it felt like a map leading him straight into the unknown. Gavin stared at his computer screen, the campaign designs blurring as Ezra's words echoed in his head. A rule about what to do when your hot boss likes you back. The office was quiet now, save for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant pulse of San Francisco's nightlife. He should have been thrilled. His crush might actually feel the same, but doubt not at him. Ezra was a natural flirt, a man who could charm a room full of clients with a single smile. What if this was just his personality, not a confession? The next day, Gavin arrived early, determined to focus on work and nothing else. He wore his favorite navy blazer, hoping it would boost his confidence. Horizon Media was already buzzing, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and the scent of fresh coffee filling the air. Lena caught him at the coffee bar, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "So what happened after I left? Did Mr. Hot Boss make a move?" Gavin groaned, pouring himself a black coffee. He said something cryptic, like, "Maybe he likes me, but I can't tell if he's serious." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Ezra doesn't strike me as the type to play games. He's direct. If he's flirting, he means it." "But what if I'm reading it wrong?" Gavin asked, his voice low. "He's my boss. If I misinterpret this, I could tank my career." Lena patted his shoulder. "Or you could take a risk and find out he's been pining for you too. Live a little, Gav." Her words stuck with him as he settled at his desk, but focus was impossible. Every time Ezra walked by, his tailored sweater hugging his frame, his blonde hair catching the morning light, Gavin's carefully crafted rules crumbled. By mid-morning, Ezra called a team meeting to review the coffee chain pitch. Gavin sat across from him, trying to ignore how Ezra's gaze lingered a beat too long. "Gavin, your visuals are stellar," Ezra said, his tone professional but warm. "Let's refine the tagline. You and I can workshop it this afternoon. My office, 3 p.m. Gavin nodded, his stomach flipping. A one-on-one with Ezra was the last thing his list allowed, but he couldn't say no. As the meeting ended, Ezra brushed past him, murmuring, "Don't forget Rule 5, no daydreaming," about his voice. "I'm onto you." The teasing lilt in his tone sent a shiver down Gavin's spine. At 3 p.m., Gavin knocked on Ezra's office door, his heart pounding. Ezra was at his desk, sleeves rolled up, a pen tucked behind his ear. The sight was unfairly distracting. "Come in," Ezra said, gesturing to a chair. "Let's make this campaign unforgettable." They dove into the work, brainstorming taglines and sketching ideas. Ezra's passion for creativity was infectious, and Gavin found himself relaxing, their banter flowing easily. But then Ezra leaned closer, pointing at a sketch. "This one's bold, like you," he said, his voice soft. "You're full of surprises, Gavin." Gavin's breath hitched. "I'm just doing my job." Ezra chuckled. "Oh, you're doing more than that. You wrote a whole manifesto about avoiding me. That's dedication." Gavin flushed. "Can we not talk about the list?" "Why not?" Ezra leaned back, his smile playful. "It's the most honest thing I've read in years. You think I'm hot. I think you're adorable. Seems like a good starting point." Gavin's mind blanked. "You what?" Ezra's expression softened. "I've been trying to get your attention for weeks. The list just gave me an excuse to stop being subtle." Before Gavin could process this, his phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Emergency client meeting. Need you now." He cursed under his breath, the moment shattered. Ezra sighed. "Duty calls." But we're not done here, Brooks. The rest of the week was a whirlwind of client meetings and deadlines, leaving Gavin little time to dwell on Ezra's words. But every interaction with Ezra felt charged, his hand lingering on Gavin's shoulder, his casual, good job, laced with something deeper. By Friday, Gavin was a mess of nerves and hope. He needed clarity, but confronting Ezra felt like stepping off a cliff. That evening, the team celebrated the coffee chain pitch's approval at a trendy bar in the Mission District. The place was alive with neon lights, pulsing music, and the clink of glasses. Gavin nursed a beer, watching Ezra charm the room. When Ezra caught his eye and beckoned him over, Gavin's heart raced. "Having fun?" Ezra asked, leaning close to be heard over the music. "Trying to," Gavin said, his voice barely steady. Ezra's gaze softened. "You're cute when you're nervous. Roll 9, right? Don't let his compliments go to your head." "Too late." Gavin laughed despite himself. "You're impossible. And you're irresistible." Ezra shot back, his voice low. He stepped closer, their shoulders brushing. The bar faded away, leaving just the two of them in a bubble of tension and possibility. The bar's neon glow cast Ezra's face in shades of blue and pink, making his eyes look like they held secrets Gavin was desperate to unravel. Their shoulders were still touching, the heat of Ezra's arm grounding him in the chaos of the crowded room. For a moment, Gavin let himself imagine breaking every rule on his list, leaning in, closing the gap, seeing if Ezra's lips were as soft as they looked. But then a co-worker's laugh broke the spell, and Gavin stepped back, his heart hammering. "I should check on Lena," he mumbled, fleeing to the safety of the bar counter. Ezra's gaze followed him, a mix of amusement and something deeper that made Gavin's chest ache. Lena was at the counter, sipping a cocktail and smirking. "You're running from him again, aren't you?" she said, not missing a beat. "He's my boss," Gavin hissed, grabbing a water to cool his nerves. "This is a bad idea. Like, career-ending bad. Or life-changing good," Lena countered. "You're both adults. You're both hot. And he's clearly into you. Stop overthinking it." Gavin wanted to believe her, but doubt clung to him like fog over the Golden Gate Bridge. Growing up in a small town, he'd learned to hide his feelings, to keep his attraction to guys under wraps. San Francisco was different, vibrant, accepting, but the stakes felt higher with Ezra. He wasn't just any guy. He was the one who could make or break Gavin's future at Horizon Media. The night wore on, and Gavin tried to lose himself in conversation with the team, but Ezra was a magnet. Every time Gavin glanced over, Ezra was watching him, his smile a silent invitation. Finally, unable to take it anymore, Gavin stepped outside for air. The cool night breeze carried the scent of the bay, and he leaned against the bar's brick wall, closing his eyes. "Running away again?" Ezra's voice was soft, close. Gavin opened his eyes to find him standing there, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "I'm not running," Gavin lied. "Just needed a break." Ezra stepped closer, the space between them shrinking. "You're killing me, Brooks. I'm trying to be patient, but your list is making it hard." Gavin's laugh was shaky. "You're the one who keeps bringing it up." "Because it's adorable," Ezra said, his voice warm. "And because it means you've been thinking about me as much as I've been thinking about you." Gavin's breath caught. "You're serious?" Ezra's eyes softened, no trace of his usual teasing. "Dead serious. I've been into you since you walked into my office with that nervous smile and those sketches that blew me away. The list just confirmed you're as human as I am." For the first time, Gavin saw vulnerability in Ezra's eyes, a crack in his confident facade. It shifted something in him, loosening the grip of his fears. But before he could respond, a group of co-workers spilled outside, their laughter shattering the moment. Ezra sighed, stepping back. "We'll talk later," he said, his voice a promise. The next week was torture. Work demanded their focus, client revisions, tight deadlines. But the tension between Gavin and Ezra simmered beneath every interaction. A brush of hands during a meeting, a shared glance over a mock-up, a quiet, "good work," that felt like a caress. Gavin's list was useless now. Ezra had dismantled it with every look, every word. On Thursday, they were tasked with presenting the coffee chain campaign to the client at their flagship store in the Castro. The vibrant neighborhood buzzed with pride flags and street performers, and Gavin felt a spark of hope in its energy. He and Ezra worked side by side, their chemistry undeniable as they pitched the campaign. The client loved it, and as they left the meeting, Ezra grabbed Gavin's arm. "Let's celebrate. Dinner, just us." Gavin hesitated, Rule 10 screaming in his mind. But the warmth of Ezra's hand, the sincerity in his eyes, won out. "Okay," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They ended up at a cozy bistro overlooking the bay, the city lights twinkling like stars. Over wine and pasta, they talked, not about work, but about life. Ezra shared stories of growing up in Seattle, his love for hiking, his struggles with being out in a competitive industry. Gavin opened up about his small-town roots, his fear of rejection, his dream of making it in the city. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time, Gavin saw Ezra not as his untouchable boss, but as a man with hopes and fears like his own. As they walked back to their cars, Ezra stopped under a streetlight, his expression serious. "Gavin, I need to know where you stand. I'm not playing games. I like you a lot, but I won't push if you're not ready." Gavin's heart pounded. The list, the rules, the fears, they all faded in the face of Ezra's honesty. "I'm scared," he admitted, "but I like you too, more than I should." Ezra's smile was radiant, and he stepped closer, their breath mingling in the cool night air. "Then let's figure this out together," he said, his voice a lifeline. The San Francisco night wrapped around Gavin and Ezra like a velvet curtain, the city's hum fading as they stood under the streetlight. Gavin's admission hung between them, fragile but real. When Ezra reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining, it felt like the world had shifted. Rule 8, shattered in the best way possible. They didn't kiss, not yet. The moment was too raw, too new, but the weight of Ezra's hand in his was enough to make Gavin's heart soar. They walked in silence to Ezra's car, the tension between them electric yet comforting. "I'll drive you home," Ezra offered, his voice soft. Gavin nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. The drive through the city was quiet, the radio playing low jazz as streetlights flickered past. Gavin stole glances at Ezra, his profile sharp against the glow of passing cars. For the first time, he let himself imagine a future where the list didn't exist, where he could just be with Ezra, no rules, no fear. When they reached Gavin's apartment in No Valley, Ezra parked and turned to him. "I meant what I said. We'll take this at your pace. No pressure." Gavin smiled, his nerves settling. "Thanks. I just need time to wrap my head around this." Ezra's eyes crinkled with warmth. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." The next morning, Gavin woke with a mix of exhilaration and dread. Dating his boss was a minefield. Office gossip, HR policies, the risk of it all falling apart. But Ezra's words, his touch, felt like a promise worth exploring. At work, he tried to act normal, but every time Ezra walked by, Gavin's pulse spiked. Lena noticed immediately. "You're glowing," she teased. "Spill." Gavin hesitated, then told her about the dinner, the walk, the hand-holding. Lena squealed, grabbing his arm. "This is huge. You're living a rom-com, Gav. Or a disaster movie," he muttered. But her enthusiasm was infectious. Work kept them busy, but Ezra found ways to blur the line between professional and personal. A quick coffee run became a chance to brush shoulders. A late-night email included a playful "miss you already." Gavin's list was in tatters, and he didn't care. But doubt lingered. What if this was too good to be true? What if Ezra got bored? Or worse, what if their relationship jeopardized office drama? His fears materialized on Monday when Sarah, the HR manager, called him into her office. Her expression was neutral, but Gavin's stomach dropped. "I've heard rumors about you and Ezra," she said, her tone professional. "Is there anything I need to know?" Gavin's face burned. "We're figuring things out. It's new." Sarah nodded, her eyes kind but firm. "You're both valued here, but workplace relationships can get complicated. Be discreet, and let me know if anything changes. We'll need to document it if it becomes serious." Gavin left her office shaken, the weight of reality crashing down. He wanted to believe in Ezra, in them, but the stakes were higher than ever. That afternoon, he found Ezra in the break room, pouring coffee. "Sarah talked to me," Gavin said quietly. "About us." Ezra's face fell. "I should have seen that coming. Are you okay?" "I don't know," Gavin admitted. "This could mess things up, my job, your reputation. Maybe we're moving too fast." Ezra set down his cup, his expression serious. "I don't care about rumors. I care about you. If this is too much, we can slow down, but I'm not giving up unless you tell me to. Gavin's chest tightened. Ezra's sincerity was disarming, but the fear of losing everything, his job, his heart, loomed large. I just need to think, he said, his voice barely audible. The rest of the week was a blur. Gavin threw himself into work, keeping Ezra at a distance. Ezra respected his space, but his lingering glances and quiet "I'm here" texts were a constant reminder of what Gavin was trying to ignore. By Friday, the tension was unbearable. Gavin needed to decide, play it safe or take the leap. That evening, the team was invited to a client's rooftop party in the financial district. The view was stunning, city lights sprawling to the bay, the air crisp with autumn. Gavin arrived late, hoping to avoid Ezra, but there he was, leaning against the railing, his sweater clinging to his frame. Their eyes met, and Gavin's resolve wavered. Ezra crossed the rooftop, his expression soft but determined. "Can we talk?" he asked, leading Gavin to a quiet corner. The city sparkled below, a perfect backdrop to the storm in Gavin's heart. "I'm scared," Gavin confessed. "This could ruin everything." Ezra nodded, his eyes steady. "I know, but I also know I've never felt this way about anyone. You're worth the risk, Gavin. Are you in?" Gavin's breath caught. The list was gone, replaced by a truth he couldn't deny. He wanted this, wanted Ezra, more than he feared the consequences. "I'm in," he whispered. Ezra's smile was like sunlight breaking through clouds. He reached for Gavin's hand, and this time, Gavin didn't pull away. Gavin's hand in Ezra's felt like a lifeline, anchoring him against the glittering San Francisco skyline. The rooftop party buzzed around them, but in that corner, it was just them, two men taking a leap into the unknown. Ezra's thumb brushed over Gavin's knuckles, a small gesture that sent warmth flooding through him. "I'm not great at this," Gavin admitted, his voice low. "Relationships. Taking risks." Ezra's eyes softened. "You're doing fine. We'll figure it out together." They rejoined the party, keeping their distance to avoid curious glances, but the connection between them was undeniable. Every shared look, every accidental brush of shoulders, felt like a promise. When the night ended, Ezra drove Gavin home again, and this time, when they parked outside his apartment, Ezra leaned over and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, but it set Gavin's world ablaze. "Good night, Brooks," Ezra whispered, his voice husky. Gavin floated into his apartment, his lips tingling, his heart full. But the next morning, reality crept back in. At work, whispers followed him, co-workers glancing his way, speculating about him and Ezra. Lena tried to reassure him, but the pressure was suffocating. He threw himself into the next campaign, a nonprofit project for LGBTQ+ youth, hoping work would drown out the noise. Ezra, true to his word, kept things professional at the office, but his small gestures, a coffee left on Gavin's desk, a quick smile during a meeting, kept the spark alive. They stole moments outside work, late-night walks by the Embarcadero, dinners at hidden cafes, each moment deepening their bond. Gavin learned Ezra's quirks, his love for cheesy 80s music, his habit of sketching landscapes when stressed. Ezra discovered Gavin's passion for photography, his quiet strength, his fear of letting people down. But the office tension grew. One afternoon, Gavin overheard a co-worker, Mark, muttering about favoritism in the break room. "Ezra's giving him all the big projects," Mark said, not noticing Gavin nearby. "Must be nice to be the boss's favorite." The word stung. Gavin had worked hard for every opportunity, but the rumors tainted his achievements. He confronted Ezra that evening, his voice tight. "People are talking. They think I'm getting special treatment because of us." Ezra's jaw tightened. "That's bullshit. You're talented, Gavin. Your work speaks for itself." "But it doesn't look that way," Gavin said, frustration bubbling. "I don't want to be the guy who sleeps his way to the top." Ezra flinched, but his voice stayed calm. "I'd never let that happen. Let's talk to HR, make it official. Transparency will shut them up." Gavin hesitated. Going public meant no turning back, but hiding felt worse. They met with Sarah the next day, disclosing their relationship. She was supportive, outlining company policies and ensuring no conflicts of interest. "You're both professionals," she said. "Keep it that way, and we're good." The disclosure eased some tension, but not all. Gavin felt eyes on him during meetings, sensed the whispers. He poured his energy into the nonprofit campaign, determined to prove his worth. The project was personal for him, a chance to give back to a community he'd struggled to find growing up. Ezra noticed his passion and gave him the lead, a move that both thrilled and terrified Gavin. As the campaign neared its launch, Gavin and Ezra worked late nights, their professional and personal lives blurring. One evening, in Ezra's office, Gavin presented his final designs. Ezra's eyes lit up. "This is incredible," he said, pulling Gavin into a hug. The embrace lingered, turning into a kiss that left them both breathless. But the moment was interrupted by a knock. Mark stood in the doorway, his expression sour. "Didn't mean to intrude," he said, his tone implying otherwise. "Just dropping off the proofs." Gavin pulled away, his face burning. Mark's smirk lingered as he left, and Gavin's doubts roared back. "This is what I was afraid of," he said, his voice shaking. "People judging us, judging me." Ezra took his hand. "Let them talk. We're not doing anything wrong. Your work is brilliant, and I'm not going to hide how I feel about you." Gavin wanted to believe him, but the weight of scrutiny was crushing. He needed space to think, to breathe. "I need a few days," he said, hating the hurt in Ezra's eyes. "Just to clear my head." Ezra nodded, his voice soft. "Okay, but I'm here when you're ready." Gavin left the office, the city's lights blurring through his tears. He'd fought so hard to build a life here, to be himself. Now he had to decide if love was worth the cost. Gavin spent the weekend in his apartment, the San Francisco fog mirroring his mood. He scrolled through old photos, his small-town childhood, his first pride in the city, moments of finding himself. The nonprofit campaign mock-ups lay scattered on his table, a reminder of why he'd come to Horizon Media, to create work that mattered. But Ezra's face kept surfacing, his smile, his touch, the way he made Gavin feel seen. Could he really walk away from that? On Monday, Gavin returned to work with a decision. He found Ezra in his office, reviewing proofs. "We need to talk," Gavin said, closing the door. Ezra looked up, his expression guarded. "I've missed you," he said simply. Gavin's heart clenched. "I've been scared," he admitted. "Of the rumors, of losing my place here. But mostly, of losing you." Ezra stood, crossing the room. "You won't lose me. Or your place. You're too good for that." Gavin took a deep breath. "I want this, us. But we have to be careful. No more office kisses, no favoritism. I need to earn my place on my terms." Ezra nodded, his eyes warm. "Deal. But outside the office, you're mine." Gavin laughed, the tension easing. "Deal." The nonprofit campaign launched a week later, a vibrant celebration in the Castro. Pride flags lined the streets, and the event drew a crowd of activists, donors, and youth. Gavin's designs, a bold mix of color and hope, shone on banners and screens. The client praised his work, and for the first time, Gavin felt the whispers fade. He'd proven himself, not as Ezra's partner, but as a creative force. After the event, Ezra and Gavin slipped away, walking hand in hand through the bustling neighborhood. The golden hour light bathed them in warmth, and Gavin felt a weight lift. He'd spent so long hiding, behind his list, his fears, his small-town past. But here, with Ezra, he was free. They stopped by a quiet cafe, their hands still linked. Ezra leaned across the table, his voice low. "You know, your list started this, but you're the one who changed everything." Gavin smiled, his heart full. "Maybe I'll write a new list. How to love my hot boss without losing myself." Ezra laughed, pulling him into a kiss that tasted like coffee and promise. The city hummed around them, alive with possibility. Gavin had come to San Francisco to find his place, but he'd found something more, a love that was worth every risk, every rule broken. Their story wasn't perfect. There would be more challenges, office politics, personal doubts, the messiness of blending love and work. But as they walked into the sunset, hands intertwined, Gavin knew they'd face it together. The list was gone, replaced by a truth that needed no rules. They were enough.